Welcome to the Focus Show. I'm Brandon K. Hedgepeth, and I'm so excited to be the host. So, heading into today's episode, I'm very excited to welcome my guest here today, Ms. Katie Morgan. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I'm excited to have you. And so, first of all, how are you doing thus far today?
It is sunny and beautiful outside, so it is a great day.
I love to hear that. Are you able to do us the honor of introducing yourself before we get started with today's episode?
Sure. My name's Katie Morgan. I'm the Executive Director of Youth Volunteer Corps of Hampton Roads.
Well, that is amazing to hear. And so if I remember correctly, that you oftentimes abbreviate that to YVC.
Yes, we definitely shorten that really lengthy title, and we love to say 1, 2, 3 YVC, and YVC is just sort of what the community has come to know us by.
I love that. So how did you get into your role at YVC, and what has the experience been for you thus far?
So I came to know YVC actually as a school counselor while I was at Denby High School. The program had really just started here locally, and it had become a partnership through the Career Pathways Department with Newport News Public Schools. And so I was presented with the opportunity to start a YVC club at Denby High School. And then when I went to what was then Dozier Middle School, now Ella Fitzgerald Middle School, I carried that club with me, and that was something that I was really excited to do, is to continue the YVC mission in my middle school counseling role. And so I just loved the mission of YVC and seeing young people get excited about serving their community.
Well, that is amazing to hear. And now as an executive director of the Hampton Roads chapter, first of all, how does that feel? And then what does your average day-to-day look like, and what does your role entail?
Well, I will tell you that it feels very rewarding, but also very busy, if not sometimes frenetic, in the sense that we are a very small team, but we cover a very large footprint. And with about 1,500 students in our program, there's just a lot of moving parts. So in my role, the day-to-day looks different. No day is the same. So for example, this morning started with grant writing. Tomorrow I'll be hauling mulch to one of our service sites. Yesterday we were doing a mural mosaic. I have board meeting preparations. And so really on the executive director side, it tends to be sort of like wearing multiple hats. So making sure that the the daily operations are being managed adequately, and that we're raising enough funds to support our programs. And then there's just a lot of people and logistics that we are managing 24/7.
Well, that is good to hear. And before we head to our next question, I did want to ask, so since your chapter of the organization covers Hampton Roads, I did want to ask, since there's so many different definitions, depending on who you ask as to what does or does not encompass Hampton Roads.
Yes.
So are you able to let us know what YVC for you focuses on for Hampton Roads?
That's a great question, and actually up until recently we were predominantly focused on the peninsula. We found that a lot of families were driving across the water to come do our camps and our evening and weekend projects, and so back in 2023 we actually made a concerted and very intentional effort to expand to South Hampton Roads, and so we now have a program director who's dedicated to serving our South Hampton Roads cities, and we also are making more intentional efforts to get into Western Tidewater, so Suffolk, Smithfield, those areas. And it's a big undertaking. We have a staff of 4, and so we really lean into adult volunteers and team leaders to help us with leading our projects, and we have lots and lots of service learning experiences on the calendar. So we consider it a huge undertaking to serve all of Hampton Roads, but that is our mission.
Well, that is good to hear. And how have overall the efforts been for you in sort of expanding the reach further?
Oh gosh, it's been, really rewarding and really inspiring. I think every time we kind of unlock another pocket of Hampton Roads and they learn about YVC, I think you realize that there is great demand for the program, in the sense that from teachers and educators and parents, and honestly the youth themselves who are looking for these opportunities. But it's really challenging for nonprofits to be able to take on young volunteers without the framework that YVC offers. So we provide, dedicated staff to each project to supervise and facilitate and take some of that burden off of the host nonprofit. And so just serving as that liaison and really guiding youth through the project from start to finish, that serves not only the community partner incredibly well, but also it helps our young people to gain the hard and soft skills that we want them to learn while they're volunteering. So every time we, find a new community partner, or we get into a new neighborhood, or we find new youth, it is very exciting.
Well, I'm so glad that it is exciting. And you mentioned earlier that prior to this, you were a guidance counselor. And so how was the transition for you going from guidance counselor and then now to being an executive director of YVC?
So I love that question because I've told many, many people over the past 9 years since I became executive director that I do very much believe that my role as a school counselor prepared me for nonprofit work. I think in education, you figure out how to do a lot with very little. You have limited time, limited resources, but the needs are great. And that is very much how it is in the nonprofit space as well. And because I'm in the youth development nonprofit space, it was just a very natural segue. I did have to really pour myself into a lot of professional development. I took a lot of courses, got some certificates, things like that to become more familiar with the ins and outs of nonprofit work. But it was a really great, I think, transition, and it was school counseling was certainly a stepping stone, and I used so many of the skills that I used as a school counselor in this youth development work.
Well, that is great to hear. And before we head to the next question, I did want to ask, is there anything that you missed from being a school counselor?
It's interesting. When I was presented with this opportunity to lead Youth Volunteer Corps, I had a meeting with my principal, and she said, Katie, I know you're worried about leaving your students, but she's like, the students always move on, and you have the opportunity to interact with and impact even more students. It's just not going to be through one school anymore. And so that stayed with me, and I think that really helped propel me to make that decision to continue working with students, but in a different capacity.
I love that. So same mission, different title.
Yes.
I love that. And I wanted to ask, so what have been your favorite parts about being at YVC?
Oh, I have a lot. I have a lot of favorite things. I think when we have young people who join us as middle schoolers, and then we get to watch them kind of grow and evolve and mature from middle school students to high school students and then graduating. I've actually had the honor of having alumni in our program who have graduated come back and serve as team leaders. That to me has been 100% probably my most favorite thing about YVC. But I really do believe that there is a space for every youth who comes into our program to feel a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and if there's anything that I think we can give young people today, it is that. It is not just the work skills, which are super, super important, but a place where they can come and feel accepted and feel like they have, gifts and talents that they can contribute. And sometimes we have really overwhelming, maybe not overwhelming, but just challenging projects, I'll say that. Maybe it's that it's a hot July day and we're, helping with an outdoor project, or maybe we're having to really be present for someone who is facing hard times and just, be demonstrating that those interpersonal skills with people who are very different than we are, and I think that I just always see youth rise to the challenge, and so I believe very much in the power of positive peer pressure. So when there are youth who are a little reluctant and a little unsure of themselves, when they see all of the other youth in our program just leap into action, it's just a beautiful thing because everybody does this beautiful work together.
I love that. And before I head to our break, the last question I want to ask for this section is, so if anyone wants to find out more information about YVC, where's the best place for them to find out the information?
Absolutely. Our website is www.yvchr.org. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, and that would be the best place to get started. There's a way to sign up and create a volunteer profile, and once that profile is created, our youth have access to any of the projects that we offer for free, evenings and weekends, and then we also have summer camps.
That is amazing to hear. We'll be right back after this break. we're back here with the Focus Show. And so continuing on our discussion, I want to shift gears a little bit more towards the youth volunteering side of things.
Sure.
And so I want to start off by asking, so what skills can youth members of YVC gain from community service?
Well, our mission at YVC is to engage young people in team-based service experiences that build work and life skills and inspire a lifetime ethic of service. So our goal for every project, whether it's an in-school project, after-school project, evening or weekend project, or even our summer camps, is that youth would walk away with soft skills in the sense that they have developed maybe better communication or critical thinking, teamwork, those things that, are maybe just going to help them in day-to-day life, but certainly in the career field of their choice. And then we also like to incorporate hard skills. So in just the last month, we've had construction projects so that they're able to get their hands on some power tools. We've done culinary projects where they're learning all the different ways that they can prep food in the kitchen. We even had a sewing project. So just some of those basic skills that not only build confidence, but just help with day-to-day life. And so in terms of, I would say, skills, I would also say traits. So I think leadership, empathy, and certainly, like I said before, like belonging and purpose are a big focus. But we definitely believe in teamwork, adaptability, problem solving, and empathy is a big one.
Well, that's good to hear. And continuing on from that, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges and rewards when it comes to youth volunteers?
As far as challenges, I think just having a robust calendar of opportunities is something that takes a ton of coordination, and we always want to make sure we're offering projects that are really challenging and rewarding for youth. And then, there are times, obviously, when our youth will flake out and sign up for a project and maybe not show up. And so that is one of those things where we're really trying to instill in our youth that reliability and punctuality, those types of things, they truly matter. And so, that's par for the course, right? Like that's part of the learning process. And so we have sometimes wait lists for our projects, and we just always want to make sure that if somebody signs up to do a service project, that they will show up, unless they're circumstances out of their control. As far as the rewards, I would say definitely just seeing young people in action and kind of combating some of the myths around, oh, these young people today. I love when we have a community partner who kind of maybe doubts that we'll finish a project to their standards or qualifications, and then we knock it out of the park. So I love being able to advocate for young people and what they're capable of.
I feel like those are so many, great examples of some of those challenges and rewards, especially when it comes to, like I said, going beyond the expectations that people have. I feel like that is some of the most rewarding.
Definitely, yes. And even with our can structure competition, that's like an annual event that we do where we have teams of students across schools in Hampton Roads, and they collect a lot of food, and then they get to design something and build something out of that food, which is eventually donated to the food bank. But there's a presentation element to it, there's an engineering and design component, and then there's just the compassion piece, like to what extent can you put that energy into collecting food for those in need? And so just being able to display that to the community is exciting, and I love that I get to help facilitate that work.
I love that. And what advice do you have for any current or hopefully upcoming youth volunteers?
I would say just dive in. Don't overthink it. We make it very accessible to any youth, whether they are first-time youth volunteers or maybe they've volunteered with like a faith organization or scouts, but we have a staff member on site. We always have team leaders there to facilitate the work, and we do icebreakers and team builders for every project so that they get to know their team and kind of gel before the project begins. And we always include a service learning lesson. So that allows young people to not just do a service project, but to also take away a better understanding of the work that they're doing, the impact they're making, and why it matters.
Well, that is good to hear. And you mentioned a little bit earlier that sometimes youth that are involved with YVC come back as adults.
Yes. Yes, currently we have 2 team leaders who have just joined our ranks, and they were actually YVC members in middle school, and they went all the way through high school, went off to college. One of them is still in college here locally at CNU, the other graduated from VCU, and we have trained them as team leaders, and they are doing great things. We have alumni who come back in the summer and help us with our summer camps, and that's always rewarding to see. It really is one of those, even though it's Youth Volunteer Corps, I feel like that lifetime ethic of service is what we're hoping to inspire, and we love to see when our alumni get back out in the community and stay active as volunteers.
I love that. And continuing forward with that, I'd wanted to ask too, so for your role, of course, as executive director, what would you say has been some of the challenges or even fun parts of your position?
Well, for the challenges, I would say it always comes down to resources, whether it's needing more human resources. Like, we would love to have our staff grow. I mean, we talked about expanding, and it's difficult to expand to all of Hampton Roads when you don't have a huge staff. So I think between different cuts to funding and things like that, we're always just pivoting and adapting, and that is our biggest challenge, is just kind of staying on top of all of the needs of the organization and still propelling us forward. And then as far as just the rewards, I would say, or maybe the fun parts, every year there's an annual YVC Summit, and it basically allows our program leaders and youth from all over the YVC network to come together. And so our network spans the United States, Canada, Uganda, and we are actually adding affiliates in Italy and Guam and Hawaii, and so there's all kinds of growth happening. And when we get to all come together for a big conference, it is really heartwarming. We learn a lot from each other. There's a lot of sharing and collaborating, and to see our young people go and have those experiences is phenomenal. And then one year, rather than going to a host city, we actually were the host city, and so we had all of those different affiliates of YVC come to Virginia Beach. And to me, that will always be one of my favorite memories, is having all of the folks from the Pacific Northwest and Canada, and anyway, it was just a really cool way to show off Hampton Roads and to have all of our favorite YVC people on this 757.
I love that. And even before going to the next question, I'm so curious, do you know what some of their thoughts were about Hampton Roads?
Well, some of the youth had never seen the ocean before, and we actually were staying. Our conference center was at a hotel on the water, and it was really neat because they would wake up every morning at dawn, and you would see kids running out on the beach, and so just that elation of being in the sand and getting their feet in the water. I think that was just a really cool way to share Hampton Roads with our other affiliates. I think they really thought that it was tinier than it is, and then once they realized how spread out and how connected we are by bridges and tunnels, I think it was pretty eye-opening. But I'm happy and very proud to say that we're one of the higher ranked affiliates in Youth Volunteer Corps, and so my hope is that there were a lot of takeaways that they were able to go back and implement in their own programs in terms of the different programs that we offer here.
I love that, and congratulations on having that opportunity.
Thank you. Yes.
Of course. And what type of leadership lessons have you taken from not just your role here within your current position, but then just across the board, working from different youth members and volunteers from your time as guidance counselor to even present day?
As far as leadership lessons, I would say never underestimate the power of young people. I think sometimes we as adults tend to say, oh, I'll do that part, or I guess, I'm going to have to lead this effort, and then tell you all, where you can plug in. But what I have seen and what I love is that when we have, for example, our youth advisory board meetings, and we have committees that really focus on different, issue areas, that they come up with fantastic ideas, and they're very capable of organizing, implementing, budgeting for different projects. And so I think the more opportunities you give to young people, the more they shine. And so sometimes as adults, we need to get out of their way. And so I think that's a leadership lesson that I've taken with me from my early years of school counseling, but definitely in my role with Youth Volunteer Corps.
I love that, and especially the part of sometimes us as adults just getting out of the way, because sometimes I feel when other people sort of take the vision, that they might take it away from other people. We become a little bit controlling. So I love that you're able to say that piece of advice.
Thank you. Yes, it's a big part of it, and I think that the leadership that we have seen our young people develop is remarkable, but also I think sometimes there's a little bit of doubt within our young people, and then when you can provide an opportunity for them to cultivate that and then to celebrate that, it is that's where they can really shine.
I love that. And what would you say your overall goals are for YVC over these next few years to come?
Well, I would say I would love to see YVC in more schools. We have a really neat and very successful in-school program called Service Through STEAM. STEAM, of course, meaning science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And it's a near-peer mentoring program here in Newport News Public Schools and also in Hampton City Schools. We would love to see that expand. I think the in-school component is really nice because it creates accessibility for students who, may not be able to participate in our evening and weekend projects or our summer camps. So I'd love to see that grow. And then, again, to those farther reaches of Hampton Roads, just being able to create some more visibility and opportunity for young people, and connecting with those community partners that we haven't been able to necessarily collaborate with yet. I just see great things in store for YVC Hampton Roads, and I think in the next few years we'll be celebrating, this is hard to believe, but we'll be celebrating 20 years in a few years, and so maybe by then we'll have a larger team and we can really make sure that we're not just visible in those areas, but that we have very strong and consistent programming in all parts of Hampton Roads.
I love that. And before we end out our discussion, I wanted to ask too, I want to give some time for you to say, so if there's anything else that you feel that is important for us to know, whether about yourself, your positions that you've held, or anything about YVC, I wanted to turn the floor over to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I would love to just encourage students here in Newport News to consider that we want young people to volunteer because it is so important to the community in terms of creating connections. And I think what's been lost definitely since technology has sort of run rampant is the connections that we have with people in real time and real space. So just the ability for us to be in a location where we're working together and we're helping others, and you're meeting new people, and we're being able to realize that we have differences, but we also can come together for a same purpose. There's just a lot of beauty in that. And I know the former Surgeon General, his prescription for America is that we would create more infrastructure for bringing people together and creating opportunities to connect. And I think YVC has been doing that for decades, because our affiliate started 16 years ago, but YVC's been around since 1987. And so I think his prescription for America is to combat isolation and loneliness by having more opportunities to serve, having relationships, and then having purpose. And that's really what YVC is all about. And so my hope is that we'll get more people serving, feeling connected, and just having that purpose that is so important.
I love that. I want to thank you so much for speaking with us. I really appreciate this conversation and enjoyed chatting with you.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Of course. And for those tuning in, thank you so much for tuning in to The Focus Show. We always love having this show, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a wonderful day.